For decades, the philosophy behind designing zoo habitats was straightforward: build a stage. Enclosures were primarily constructed as theatrical sets, meant to give human visitors a clear view of the animals, with little consideration for the complex biological needs of the creatures living inside. The Detroit Zoo's 1968 penguinarium was state-of-the-art for its time, but original blueprints reveal strict limitations. The plans outline a triangular floor plan and a ring-shaped pool only 1.8 meters deep, leaving the birds with tight corners and severely restricted swimming paths. To a human observer, the rockwork and clear water looked like a sufficient habitat, but for an ocean-dwelling bird built to dive deep and swim for miles, this geometry completely restricted their physical reality. This mismatch created chronic, hidden medical issues. When a bird is forced to stand entirely on flat concrete, it develops bumblefoot, a painful, degenerative, inflammatory condition that rarely occurs on the uneven ice and rocks of their natural habitat. The indoor environment also lacked the correct light. Standard indoor bulbs do not provide the full spectrum of ultraviolet radiation that penguin eyes require to stay healthy. Without that specific UV exposure, captive birds experienced high rates of cataracts. Beyond physical ailments, the design took a psychological toll. King penguins are territorial, and when forced into a small footprint where they cannot naturally distance themselves from the flock, the frequency of social aggression rises. To solve these intertwined medical and behavioral problems, architects had to scrap the human-centric playbook. They realized they needed an accurate biological blueprint, and the only place to find it was inside an Antarctic blizzard. A team of researchers and designers traveled to the Palmer Station on the Antarctic Peninsula. Working alongside polar ecologists, they spent months documenting the environmental variables wild penguins rely on to survive. They documented how the birds move on land. Instead of resting on smooth surfaces, wild penguins scaled jagged, unstable terrain, navigating steep slopes and uneven ground to reach their nesting sites. In the water, the team tracked penguins diving to extreme depths, utilizing high-speed porpoising to launch themselves out of the waves, and traveling vast continuous distances in pursuit of prey. The team also measured the light. They recorded the intense, full-spectrum UV exposure reflecting off the sea ice, as well as the distinct seasonal light cycles of the polar summer and winter. The challenge shifted from ecology to engineering, mathematically translating these brutal wild variables into a highly controlled $30 million enclosed facility in Michigan. The result was the Polk Penguin Conservation Center. The blueprints prioritize biological replication over viewing angles. To eliminate foot disease, designers replaced flat concrete with textured rockwork and shock-absorbing pathways, mimicking the physical resistance of wild Antarctic terrain. The lighting grid was overhauled to prevent eye degradation. Engineers installed UV-penetrable skylights to provide natural sun exposure, paired with red wavelength nighttime lighting strictly programmed to match the polar seasons. This diagram illustrates the massive upgrade to the aquatic environment, a 326,000-gallon, 7.6-meter-deep pool. It incorporates a continuous circular channel, allowing the birds to swim for miles without ever having to reverse direction. Maintaining this environment requires massive volumes of water, but the engineering focuses on protecting the source. The center utilizes evergreen sustainability strategies, like closed-loop recirculation and net-zero water goals, to provide the clean, filtered water necessary for penguin health, while reducing the facility's overall impact on the environment. On paper, the new center was a theoretical replica of a wild ecosystem, but to know if the architecture actually succeeded, the design team needed proof that the birds themselves recognized the difference. To gather that proof, scientists conducted a post-occupancy evaluation. They framed the building as a scientific hypothesis that required objective testing. The methodology relied on telemetry. Researchers attached time-depth recorders to the king penguins, devices logging their physical movements through water at specific intervals. The team gathered over 10,000 hours of data, monitoring the colony as they transitioned out of the 1968 habitat and into the new center. By relying on automated sensors, the researchers stripped human interpretation out of the equation. The data loggers provided raw mathematical evidence of exactly how the architecture altered the colony's biology. This chart shows the exact swimming durations recorded between the two buildings. Upon entering the new habitat, the king penguins exhibited a tenfold increase in their total time spent swimming. The quality of their movement changed as well. The depth and layout of the new pool triggered wild behaviors like high-speed porpoising and endless continuous channel swimming. These movements were physically impossible in the old building. This graph plots the flock's social dynamics. With the ability to naturally distance themselves, contact aggression dropped sharply, while positive social interactions like allopreening rose concurrently. The gathered telemetry reveals a clear result. Modern zoo architecture is no longer just an aesthetic backdrop for the public. It is a targeted medical and psychological intervention that allows captive species to measurably thrive.